It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It's a Tuesday. Gary? Maybe we can borrow from Tim Scott. This could be a Hades No Tuesday. What do you think? He was asked about the border bill.
I know.
If he was on board, and he said that would be a Hades No. So,
you know, we gave our preliminary analysis yesterday, and that holds today. And I was just saw it about 15 minutes ago. Started reading Andrew McCarthy's column. Like, okay, he hits every point that we hit.
Yeah,
every single point. He said, that is to say, the good in the bipartisan Senate negotiators' proposal, and there is definitely some. Number one, can already be accomplished under current law. And B, would require faith that the Biden administration will, for some reason, enforce these provisions, even though it has systemically refused to enforce existing border security provisions. It's exactly what we said yesterday.
I would like to thank Mr. McCarthy for listening. I know he's not. I know he didn't get that from us. We can say great minds think alike. Mediocre minds sometimes think just like great minds, like that of Mr. McCarthy. But he's absolutely right. You know, because I asked the question, and yesterday during the in the middle of the show, it's like, okay, let's everybody stop. Why do we need a bill? Why do we need a border bill at all?
He said, more importantly, to get to the illusory good in the proposal, Congress would have to enact provisions in the deal that would both undermine existing statutory restrictions and etch into our law magnets for illegal immigration. He said the most significant aspect of the deal is the one the senators tout as, in effect, not merely forcing an immediate shutdown of the border, but ending the main driver of illegal immigration, ending, as Bill Malugin abruptly puts it, because he talked about Bill Malugin and his analysis of it, going, oh, yeah, he's bringing up the good things in the bill if you could basically trust the government or the president to do the right thing. But he said, ending, as Malugin puts it, the whole idea I made it to the U.S. soil, you have to process me. Well, immediately we detect the flaw in the senator's calculations that I have repeatedly emphasized here, and here. Both legally and practically speaking, the border can be shut down right this instant. There is no legal requirement that any alien who sets foot on American soil be permitted to apply for asylum, which is a discretionary act of national clemency, not a right of an alien. There is similarly no mandate that such aliens be routed into a process that enables them to remain, even though their first contact with our nation is to flout its laws, and even more, empowering illegal aliens this way is patently harmful to aliens who are attempting to enter by complying with our laws. To state it clearly, it is not true that under existing federal law that an alleged alien who makes it onto U.S. soil has a right to be processed or seek asylum. As things stand, that is a wayward proposition, and there is no need for a new law to reform it. To the extent that the senators claim otherwise, they are either misinformed or misleading us. Now, why do the senators claim that their proposal would require that the border be shut immediately? Because of its algorithm as applied to current conditions. Although I surround although I surround require in sneer quotes, because the senators presume that President Biden will enforce the proposed border closing formula, even though he is not enforcing existing law right now, and even though his political base believes the United States should not have borders, giving Biden the incentive to game the system in favor of maximizing illegal immigration. If the senators' formula were enforced, the border would have to be closed because it calls for closure when there is a 7-day average of 5,000 illegal alien encounters per day. Encounters is a euphemism that the DHS uses for apprehensions of illegal aliens at ports of entry and elsewhere. It doesn't say apprehension or arrest because that would imply detention, which is not happening in most cases. The border would also have to be closed under the formula if there were 8,500 encounters in a single day. Ergo, as Mnuchin observes, because the Biden non-enforcement policies routinely result in over 5,000 illegal entries per day, with many days featuring over 8,500. And he goes through everything, the number that came in December. We are already at a threshold at which the senator's formula would direct that the administration close the border. Thereafter, the border would not be reopened until the number of illegal immigrants attempting to enter decreased significantly. Well, that's just that's just bait. Just enact this proposal, and the problem is solved instantly. Put aside for a moment the fact, and it is fact, that Biden could lawfully close the border now without any such formula. The proposal sets several caveats, the implication of which is the senators are content with the entry of something close to 5,000 illegal aliens per day. And now note that 5,000 per day would be 1.8 million per year, more than the population of Phoenix. He goes on to make the comparison. He goes, the senators propose that the border should be closed at the discretion of the administration via the Homeland Security Secretary if encounters are 4,000 a day. That is, if the illegal entries are merely happening at a rate close to 1.5 million a year, the secretary need take no action. Moreover, if the border is closed under the mandatory 5,000 per day formula, then the average number of illegal aliens seeking entry dips to only 3,725 a day, a rate of 1.4 million per year. Then the border closure authority is withdrawn. Think about that. Right now, as I explained, citing Section 1182 of the U.S. immigration law and recent Supreme Court precedent, Biden has the statutory authority right now to close the border. If the Senate proposal were signed into the law, it could be argued, and progressive judges appointed by Biden would surely rule, that the new law superseded the old and that the president now lacks the authority to shut the border unless illegal entries are averaging over 5,000 a day. Why would we agree to that?
Right.
And we'll go on and on and on because he brings up a bunch of different things. He goes, moreover, the Senate proposal would restrict the president's ability to close the border, even if the magic 5,000 per day average is surpassed. In the first year of the proposal, the shutdown authority would be available for only 270 days, 9 months, not 12. In the second year, that drops to 225 days, about 7 months, and in the third year, 6 months.
I mean, it's insane. It really is, because what we're actually doing, and it's, as we learn more and more about the bill itself, what we would be doing if it weren't DOA in the House. But this is the problem. By the way, it may be DOA for now. What I fear is the GOP's tendency to move further and further left and then all of a sudden you hear after the election, we may have a deal from the GOP in the House. And it's important to put this thing out now, burn it to the ground, and make sure that it's done now. Because what we're doing, what McCarthy points out here, And you put it with what we've been saying is you're creating a permanent hole in the border, and you're even tying the administration's hands, any administration's hands, on closing the border. You're limiting closing the border. There's a reason all the Democrats love this thing.
It says, as Mnuchin notes, the senators also protest that their proposal does not mean 5,000 illegal aliens would be allowed in before the border closure would mandatorily kick in, 4,000 or 4,000 under the above described discretionary authority. Rather, they insist single adults would be detained, although they concede family units would be released under the makeshift fraud known as alternatives to detention. And to supposedly demonstrate their seriousness, the senators propose funding 16,000 additional detention spaces, raising the total to 50,000. The response he has the exact same response we had yesterday. Jeez. As the senators well know, Biden is not using the 34,000 detention spaces Congress currently funds. In the Biden era, raising the number of spaces would just mean funding more unused detention resources.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the core point. Existing law mandates that illegal aliens entering the United States be detained, not released. Additionally, this is as it should be, since the entry is illegal and the aliens have no right to be at liberty, yet the senator's proposal would undermine the existing law by codifying the release of vast categories of illegal aliens, family units, and unaccompanied minors. The current government practice of releasing these aliens in violation of law and common sense is exactly what's driving the border crisis. Illegal aliens are strategically arriving in family units, arriving with children, or arriving as children who seek to join family already here, because Biden has let it be known that those aliens will get in, and once in, they have a very good chance of staying. Why would we agree to a proposal that would carve into law huge exceptions to the statutory presumption that illegal aliens are supposed to be detained upon being encountered? The senators saying that because Biden is breaking the law, we should change the law to accommodate his lawlessness? I realize that Democrats see it that way, but again, why would Republicans agree? Every point that we have brought up. But here's the one point that I think really hits a lot of people. When you see the parts in there, where Biden could call an emergency over the emergency.
Right.
And that once the emergency takes place, the discretion of whether people come or go would be directly and cannot be questioned, and the states can't be involved in it. It would be strictly Mayorkas, who has lied, been a pathological liar, who would control all of this.
Well, no, I mean, you're basically, if you want to, for the liberals who want to defeat Greg Abbott and other governors like Greg Abbott, this would be the way to do that. And it would be harder, you would probably have a court challenge on it, but the court's position really starts and ends with, hold on a second, did the elected representatives get this done? Or was this an administrative ruling? And so there's a big difference. Not saying that the court couldn't find this law unconstitutional if the bill became law. But it's harder. It's a much greater mountain to climb when it's done through our elected representatives. This is the most frustrating part about the GOP right now in the Senate, those that are on board with this. It shouldn't be, one of the headlines yesterday shouldn't have been Senator Tim Scott's response, because it should have been a given. There's not one GOP senator that's going to touch this thing, but that's not where we are.
Well, when you, what was the point that I wanted to, it just flew right out of my head.
You were ending the point here with Mayorkas having all the power and basically taking it out of the hands of the states.
Well, what you have here, you have a weaker immigration law than we currently have right now. We're being told lies about, number one, the fact that the president is not following What a stricter law is, he's just ignoring it, and there's no indication because they give him the authority. They give him the authority to close the border sometimes, but not other times. He has the ability to close the border all the time right now.
Right.
And this new bill says, well, no, only 9 months if it gets to a particular point in the first year. Then what was it, 7 months or whatever, and then finally 6 months of the year is the only time that he could use it. It actually says the president doesn't have the authority to call an emergency to close the border at certain times of the year.
And can you imagine that we're
he has the ability now to do it.
Right. And can you imagine we're on, under full-on attack from, which, I know that we are at times under attack from our enemy and Iran's proxies. But imagine that was ramped up. Would this law prevent the president from shutting the border down, immigration down? Would the president be limited based on this law if you can't declare a real emergency?
This thing is sort of blowing up because the stories out yesterday is McConnell now is saying he's suggesting senators vote no on it, and even Langford isn't saying he will vote to move it through cloture.
It better be a hard no, because I'm telling you right now, reviewing all of I think they've already gone past that threshold for me. If I lived in Oklahoma, I don't know that I could support Langford again ever. But they're clearly learning something here. If Langford doesn't vote for it in cloture,
I have the article coming up here.
Then that's going to be a huge turnaround. But it's still not enough. You had to wait for people to tell you to do the right thing.
866-90 Red Eye.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine tire inspections and pay special attention to any unusual wear patterns. Once unusual tread wear is visible on a tire, its traction and stopping distance is reduced and its lifespan will likely be shortened.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So the Republican senators, and look, if you just look at some of the things in the bill, you go, well, that'd be good if we could get to that point. Yeah, it'd be good if we can get to that point. But as we said yesterday, everything is based on the fact of weakening current immigration law, changing the immigration law as it currently is by Congress, that the president will not enforce at all,
right,
and making it a much weaker bill when it comes to what we can actually do at the border.
And at a point tying the president's hands in closing the border.
And even make it so the president can't close the border. He could actually come out and say, well, I can't close the border because of the law that Congress passed, because there's only 3,800 coming across, each and every day. It's just it's bad.
Well, again, it is.
By the way, it's disingenuous to the American people. They're lying to the American people.
They are. It's horrible.
And
it's again like saying, well, you got a 1-inch hole in your tire, but look at the tread. The tread is the rest of your tire is great.
Well, I'll tell you what Langford said yesterday. Coming up.
We have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today and listen when and where you want if you can't listen live overnight. All right, I want to get to this audio here. This is on Fox News yesterday, and Senator Langford. This is the whole thing about does not allow 5,000 people to enter in a day. But listen to how he explains it. This is the problem with this. They knew that there was going to be a huge question. What does this mean? And they can't answer it.
Right.
And to show you here we go. Right.
So joining us now for his first interview since the text was released last night, GOP Senator James Langford. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to go to the part that you wanted to find the most misunderstood, the 5,000. What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's really ridiculous when we go on the backside of December. What just happened when we had 10 and 12,000 people a day coming across. And this authority is a 5,000 authority to say if you get to 5,000, which we've been there every single day except for 7 in the last 4 months, that it completely closes the border down. It deports everyone. It changes the paradigm from right now. What the Biden administration is doing is catching and releasing everyone to actually catching and deporting everyone. It literally flips the script on it. I have people saying, well, I don't want to do that at 5,000. I want to do that at 3,000. And say, well, fine, we can do 3,000. But right now, every day we're at 5,000. It doesn't matter between the two. We've got to be able to have something that mandatorily deports everyone rather than actually releases everyone. That's what this does. Some people are thinking that this is somehow like counting 5,000 people in every day and releasing them. That's absurd. We changed the asylum laws. We increased detention beds. We doubled the deportation flights. We add ankle monitors for people that are actually coming through that do these family groups that come through so we can track any individual that when we don't have capacity. Right. There's all the things that we build into this to make this a much stronger system. Gaps that are in the law get closed in this structure.
So you're saying even people who have come through and they actually fit the demand and can get in, that counts, including people that get rejected, that counts. So when you hit that 5,000 number, everything shuts down. Almost like the stock market, when there's too much trading, they'll shut it down to the next day. And you're saying if this was in place now, the border would be shut down.
That's correct. The border would be shut down. Not only the border would be shut down today, it had been shut down every single day the last 4 months, and we'd have been turning people around. Instead, actually, people have been released into the country. If this would have been in place 4 months ago, we'd have had 1 million fewer illegal immigrants into our country right now.
Also, there's some text in there that says the president does have some discretion to open up the border after it's shut down and not go by these rules. Is that true?
So, again, we're back to the crazy details of this, of people that are throwing stuff in there just trying to be able to attack a proposal that actually closes the border down. Yes, there's a discretionary piece on this, but
that's all we got to hear.
End of story.
Right, and he makes it seem like it's nothing. And on the the 3,000, I mean, what they're trying to sit there and say the border would be closed right now if the president wished to close the border. Andrew McCarthy points out there is nothing that mandates deportation in this bill. It said they can, that you can deport, you can do all of this, but it's all up to the discretion of Mayorkas.
Well,
when the emergency is called,
right.
What the Fox host didn't ask was, why can't it be zero?
Right.
Why
don't we start at zero?
Right. Why do you wait for 3,000 or 5,000? Because what you're saying is, come on in. There's a chance you could still get in because we're processing at least 5,000, which is way more than they've ever done before. So if it's at 3,000, you still want to come in.
Well,
because you need to get up. You need to get up to that average. So really, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be. As he denied, that's what it was going to be.
Well, there is some discretion. Then stop talking, because that's the problem. You're handing over the power to the administration while also limiting the power and giving liberal administrations an excuse, the same kind of excuse that Biden is trying to make right now for not being able to close the border. He would have permanently for not being able to close the border if this were to become law. Think about that. He's been telling the media, well, they just need to give me the power to close the border. And this bill, if it became law, would actually limit the president's power to close the border. And here's the thing, too. It gets back to the question I asked yesterday. Why do we need a bill? Why do we need a new bill on the border? We don't. We have current law. If we need new appropriations for border funding, let's talk about a border appropriations bill that starts with input from the Border Patrol Union, the boots on the ground. Let's ask them what they need. In fact, their representative was on, I don't remember which network, I think it was Fox News recently, and said, it's not about money. We need the policy to change. This isn't, and if that's the case, if the Border Patrol agents are saying we don't need more money, we need this flow of people to go away, that's simple. And Joe Biden himself can do that with one pen.
As Andrew McCarthy wrote in National Review, now the Republican senators involved in this negotiation claim they believe we should not be letting in any illegal immigrants into the country. They are just swallowing hard and doing what they must do to get their Democratic colleagues to deal with the Biden crisis. I take them at their word. Therefore, I assume that they would deny that under their proposal as just described, the president would be deprived of border shutdown authority for months at a time, even though thousands of illegal aliens would be pouring in, a situation that would encourage still more thousands to come in. But if they would deny that this is what their proposal does, then they can only be because they believe the president has the authority under existing law to close the border. If that is the case, however, then why impose any formula? Why not just close the border under existing authority? Furthermore, why agree to a legislative formula that courts could justifiably construe as divesting the president of his previously existing statutory authority to close the border? It's obvious why post-sovereign, no-borders progressives would want that. But again, why would Republicans? And it says, and then they go into the entire thing of the 4,000 or 5,000, whatever that is. It goes, which brings us to the core point. Existing law mandates that illegal aliens entering the United States be detained. Rationally, this is as it should be, since entry is illegal, and the aliens have no right to be at liberty here in the United States. Yet the senator's proposal would undermine that existing law by codifying the release of vast categories of illegal aliens, family units, and unaccompanied minors. The current government practice of releasing these aliens is in violation of law and common sense, is exactly what's driving up the border crisis. Illegal aliens are strategically arriving in family units, arriving with children, or arriving as children who seek to join family already here, because Biden has let it known that these aliens will get in, and once in, they have a very good chance of staying. Why would we agree to a proposal that would carve into law huge exceptions to the statutory presumption that illegal aliens are supposed to be detained upon being encountered? The senator saying that because Biden is breaking the law, we should change the law to accommodate his lawlessness? I realize the Democrats see it that way, but again, why would Republicans agree? And gets into alternatives for detention and says, in addition, the proposal would give statutory to support to alternatives to detention, a costly fraud that further undermines the law's presumption of detention. Administrations of both parties started ignoring that presumption in the Bush 43 years, scaling up to the Obama years, although relying on alternatives to detention flouts current statutory law. These administrations rationalized that Congress was not sufficiently funding resources for detention and adjudication to deal with the growing number of illegal entries. Only in Washington would this mean we somehow had to allow overflow above detention resources to roam free in our country rather than close the border until detention resources were freed up, and then admit only as many as could be detained. Rather than substantially increasing detention and adjudication resources, Congress began funding alternatives to detention about 20 years ago under Obama and finally Biden. ATD evolved from a supposedly necessary evil into a preferred method of processing illegal aliens, and just goes through everything here. And everything he says is right. We're weak, and it's what we thought. It's exactly what we thought when we were doing our research on the show yesterday, trying to read the bill and doing everything as we were trying to do a show, because it came out when we were sleeping before we came in to do the radio show. And for you listening on our podcast, the podcast. But it weakens current law, but still trusts the president, puts some of the power in the president, and once the emergency goes into effect, the HHS head, who is Mayorkas, would control everything. His decision would be final.
This is
whatever the decision is. The decision doesn't say. The decision does not say
what he has to decide.
Right.
The law doesn't state, or the bill doesn't state what he has to decide. He can. It's when you say discretion, then you're saying, because even when it's written clearly with a mandate in a bill that becomes law, we have to deal with the liberals who believe that they can interpret it into something very different. Well, in this case, they don't even have to go that far, because you're handing them discretion. There should be no discretion whatsoever. And when it comes to detention, I don't care if it's Bush 43. I don't care if it was Reagan. If they're not funding it properly, then what is the funding needed for? Is it that more people are coming in? Is it detention we need to be funding, or Border Patrol agents on the ground apprehending and sending people back? Deportation needs to be funded. When we talk about detention, and, we have an increased cost. Why is it? Because we have more people coming here. Well, we can fix that. You know, there was a guy who proposed something, and this is going to sound crazy, but he proposed a wall. I can't tell you if the Border Patrol agents and the Border Patrol Union would tell you where they need a wall or whatever. And we've said from the beginning, I can show you where there would be flaws with the wall in certain locations, but I'm not on the border. I'm not an agent. I'm not the Border Patrol Union. Let them tell us what they need to keep people from coming across. Everything else is immigration. And when you claim that you are seeking asylum, great. Sorry, but you're going to have to wait where you are until your court date.
A simple question. If Congress can solve the border crisis by tightening up the removal process, toughening asylum standards, and increasing detention resources, why not just do that? Border security is, after all, Congress's duty, too. Why, when we already have a crisis, should we accept millions more illegal immigrant entries as a price for having Congress do what is obliged for them to do anyway?
Yeah, exactly. What I just said a minute ago. If we need greater appropriations, let's have that conversation, and let's have the Border Patrol tell us what they need.
And he says here, to repeat what I've said before, I don't support Donald Trump for president, and it is no moment to me that he may oppose the senator's proposal for political reasons. Same with me. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Any of my opinions got nothing to do with what I think, not what Trump thinks.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So what happens to the border bill now? Interesting to see Republicans in the House saying, well, we have a border bill, too, and we've had it. How come there wasn't so much attention paid to this border bill?
Hey, you know what, Gary? I have one that's already been signed into law. It's the current law. You're welcome. There, I fixed it.
When you look at it here, this headline, Mitch McConnell turns against border bill. We'll get to that coming up here in a little bit because it's where is this entire thing going to go. But it was interesting, just the Republicans saying, we have a border bill.
Yeah.
And what they say is their border bill would actually hire more Border Patrol agents to remove people, but they would have to have, there would have to be specific things. Their bill is about securing the border.
And giving child tax credits to non-citizens, maybe?
Well, that's the other bill.
Sorry. I'm getting them confused. I'm getting the GOP confused with the GOP.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell made the shocking decision to recommend Republicans block the advancement of the Senate pro-migration border bill. The first procedural vote was set for Wednesday. It is unknown if Schumer will forge ahead, although that is likely. McConnell said the overwhelming number of Senate Republicans planning to vote against the measure, either on substance or because they wanted more time, according to Punch Bowl News. A longtime Republican leader has spoken in favor of the deal and did not express any personal hesitations about the legislation to his colleagues. According to Punch Bowl, McConnell said the political mood in the country has changed since negotiations began months ago. It has.
What has changed?
I don't know. Is it the political mood in the country has changed since negotiations began months ago?
No, it hasn't.
I don't know what he's talking about.
On the border, it hasn't.
I know. At that time, McConnell and Democratic leaders agreed to pair foreign aid to Ukraine, of which McConnell is the Senate's greatest champion, with the border compromise. Democrats, although also generally in favor of aiding Ukraine's stalemated war against Russia, need McConnell, his fervor for Ukraine and against Republicans dangling a proposed border compromise in exchange for aiding the European nation. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer touted his close work with McConnell on the deal, saying, "I have never worked more closely with Leader McConnell on any piece of legislation as we did on this." Leaked details of the secretive deal, which McConnell's chosen Republican lead negotiator, Senator James Langford, and other allies denied, were confirmed Sunday upon the bill's release. The overwhelming opposition led McConnell to altering his plan on Monday night. Even Langford, who continued championing the deal leading up to Monday night's Senate Republican conference meeting, would not say after the meeting if he would vote to move forward Wednesday on the deal he negotiated, according to the Huffington Post.
Roger Wicker of Mississippi, senator from Mississippi, a Republican, said, "I think the proposal is dead." And Langford, as you mentioned, leading up to that meeting just hours ago, we're trying to figure out what to do next. That's a quote from Langford. People are saying, hey, we need a lot more time to go through this. Yeah, everybody's saying that, Mr. Langford, Senator Langford, especially after your appearance a week ago Sunday, appearances on Sunday morning news shows, and you claimed it was a bunch of internet rumors. And we said, as a group, show us the bill. And it's so ludicrous. This behavior by the GOP is right out of the Democrats' playbook. I mean, it really sounded, Langford was as close to, we have to pass this bill so we can see what's in it, as I've ever seen anyone in the GOP, except for maybe Liz Cheney or Mitt Romney at times. And on this, it's like they're learning something, the political, what they say, the political environment, the political tone is changing.
The political winds have changed.
No, they haven't. On the border, they have not. In fact, you can go back. We talked about this the other day. You can go back to 2016 when Trump first ran. And in that year, the American people were with him on closing the border. The polls started changing when you introduced the words, the wall. Basically, the American people were saying, yeah, we don't know about a wall. But yeah, the majority of the American people were saying, yeah, close the border.
Well, one of the other problems was the Republicans were using it. They said, look, one of your negotiators, Chris Murphy, said the border remains open. He was promoting that the border remains open. That's what he was promoting. Look, you read this bill. It's tough to figure out. I mean, you go through this bill. This is a tough bill because it's so long. And you're like, okay, well, it would be good if we could get to, that part. But then it says you got to trust here and trust here. Well, I don't agree with that. And then you read something, I don't understand what that means. Mm-hmm. And you go through the entire bill. And that's why I said it doesn't really matter what's in the bill. The important things are, number one, it limits the president's ability to close the border, which he doesn't have right now. He can close the border if he wishes to right now. And he doesn't wish to do it, but he can close it right now.
Right.
The president, as Andrew McCarthy has pointed out, by law, current law, he has the ability to do it. Why would you make the immigration law actually less strict than it is right now that the president isn't paying attention to, and believe that the president and Mayorkas would follow this law and not try to appease the far left?
Right.
And when you read it, you're like, there's just possibly too many loopholes. When I was reading it yesterday and also, yesterday and all day yesterday, I was thinking, I wish the Chevron decision would be decided in the fact that you overturn it. Now, because any bill that I read, any single bill I read now, I go,
it seems to apply.
It's every single bill.
Yeah.
Chevron applies going, well, there's something going to say, well, you didn't tell us exactly what to do here.
Yeah.
And you said here that Mayorkas has the discretion to deport or not. Well, then he'd just say, I'm not going to deport. And his response would be gospel. That would be it.
Right.
Nobody else could touch it.
Right.
Because Congress has given him the ability to do that, in an emergency to deport or not. And the president, if an emergency is called, mandated because of the 5,000, he can override the emergency.
Right.
And then you can only enforce the emergency for 9 months out of the first. Why would you pass a bill saying you can only enforce the law 9 months out of 12? And then it goes down to, by the third year, 6 months out of 12.
Right.
These are the kind of games that the public sees and Republicans see and go, to hell with you.
Well,
you're not serious. Number one, if you were serious, there would have been transparency from the beginning on this.
Well, that's the whole thing. This whole thing with Langford. Well, we don't know now. We don't know. Why didn't you know right away? How is it that any of them would ever look at this and go, whoa? Because the first thing you and I were going through yesterday, just hours after it came out on the Sunday night, Monday morning show, going, wow. Because I thought, in fact, I'll have to look it up. I have to look it up again. The word discretion came up way, way, way too much. And if I looked at that as a senator, as a GOP senator, I'm like, whoa, what's all this? discretion. No, I don't want discretion and then limiting what the administration, any president could do when it comes to shutting the border down for emergency. Imagine that. You know, the liberals got all in a twist when the whole travel ban went into effect under Trump. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
It was a temporary travel ban. What did it last? Well, I mean, it was designed to only last several weeks. It was only a couple. Was it either 2 months or 3 months? It wasn't that long. It wasn't permanent. And it was set up based on the countries that had already been established as potential risks when it comes to travel under the Obama administration.
Right.
And they got in a twist about that. Well, imagine we got ourselves in, just imagine. Because right now, what are we seeing? We're seeing all these Iran proxies. We're seeing Afghanistan, which is now, thanks to the Biden botched exit of Afghanistan, a terrorism superstate. And we know this for sure because we actually know of the terrorist groups that are right now in Afghanistan. And they're gaining power. It's only a matter of time. Imagine when that happens, and it's not a matter of if, it is when. And then the president, any president, well, my hands are tied. I can't declare an emergency and shut down the border because the law says I can't do it. No, no, and no. I'll go a little bit further than Senator Tim Scott. Hell no.
Yeah, I did see that there was, I think, one Democrat congressperson that came out, because the far left was pretty quiet on the whole thing yesterday.
Yeah.
You had some on the far left say, no, this is too conservative. They really want open borders completely. They look at it and go, well, this might put more restrictions on the border than we like, but I go with what we have said with more credibility, and that is the fact that it weakens current immigration law, and why would we be doing that right now? And they can close the border down now, and then anything is really up for discussion. But you close the border and you start from the base of zero. And then you say, what are we going to do in our immigration system?
Exactly. That's and if we need funding, let's talk about appropriations for the border separately. And that starts, of course, in the House. That's where the purse strings are, and we can have that conversation, and we can include, in fact, let's include some input from the Border Patrol Union. Tell us what is needed, because, again, recently they were saying this isn't about money. It was the head of the Border Patrol Union that he was saying, look, it's not about money, it's about policy. Now, I'm sure they do need money, but what he's saying is that right now this is about the policy. Change the massive flow, the policy that is creating this massive flow of people across the border. Let's start there. And then we can ask the Border Patrol what they need. And then we can go through our representatives. Basically, the American people can decide what we're going to spend on that. And I think it's always a worthy spend, especially when we are catering directly to the needs of the Border Patrol. I vote for that all day long. But why is this so hard? It's like dealing with adolescents. It really is like dealing with adolescents. It's like me telling my dad when I was an adolescent in Del Rio, hey, you went to that party. Well, Dad, you told me I couldn't go to Tony's party. I went to Kevin's party. It's, that's exactly what every administration, well, the law doesn't say we can't do this. It doesn't say it, leaves it open. This is where we get back to this whole Chevron decision. This could be critical to a lot, and I hope it is a broad decision. I hope it's not a narrow decision that's just about the fisheries in that case. I hope it is something that sets precedent across the board and is sweeping change in that regard, because way too many administrations have had way too much power for way too long.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
It's a common road rumor that it's impossible for one-truck owner-operators and even carriers with just 2 or 3 trucks to get freight direct from the source, the shipper. Yet, hard-won experience from untold numbers of owner-operators with authority disproves the notion. Search your home base area and, later, frequent freight destinations to find all the manufacturers, distributors, and other shippers in the area. Once you get that list, ask yourself if those companies know who you are and what you do. If not, you're leaving opportunities on the table. Strive to own your backyard, to build a solid foundation for the business. For many a small fleet, it's the loads outbound from home that are the bread and butter. But you can take that same approach to the destination area, identifying shippers there and getting on the phone to make sure they know who you are and what you do. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the show, Powell tells 60 Minutes Fed is wary of cutting rates too soon. The whole thing about March looks like that's not going to happen. And also, it seems like the Fed is concerned with the debt.
Yeah. What?
Oh, and the border bill, too. Nothing is paid for. So it all goes to...
Oh, well, then
it all goes to debt.
Then why don't we just pass this thing immediately? Yeah. My gosh. Seriously. Oh, and we can't pay for it. You know what we can't pay for? Well, actually, I should shut up because I don't even know if we can. But I was going to say the existing law, the one that's already in place, well, it has to be appropriated. I guess we can pay for it. I mean, it's kind of splitting hairs here, but...
Well, actually, we can't pay for...
I was going to say...
We can't pay fully for anything
now. I was going to say, really, we're kind of not paying for anything. It's pretty much all on our... And we're not procreating. We keep saying, you and I keep saying, well, we're putting it on the backs of our kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids. And how long is a car loan now? I think you can get a car loan that your great-great-great-great-grandchild is going to inherit.
The average 56 months.
56 months.
That's the average. So.
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's almost 5 years. Average.
Yes. I don't know what the median is. I would be interested to see what the median is.
Right. I mean, I think they go to 72, maybe 84. I have to look it up. I'll Google it. By the way, discretion in that bill, that's almost, 400 pages long? 12 times the word discretion I found in that bill. I just searched it. And so, but yeah, we're at a point where nobody, except for our audience and conservatives, a handful of us, cares about the debt. Nobody cares about... I know we care about the border. I think we're seeing that in play right now. I think, things are flying back in the face of these senators who were on board. I hope that's the case. We'll see where the cloture vote is on Wednesday, tomorrow. So we'll see where it goes.
But these Republican senators, look, we understand that the Democrats on the issues that I saw Joe Rogan the other day talking about the fact that I've always been a liberal. these people are insane. These people are insane. These people are insane.
Yeah.
They're delusional, and
Yeah.
they are. But think about the Republican senators that seem to be completely out of touch as to where this country is on illegal immigration.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
completely out of trust, or excuse me, out of touch about how the public doesn't trust them.
Right.
And that you can't negotiate something in secret, and you can't just be leaking things and then criticizing people who comment on it. I mean, you're playing the typical political game that the public is just sick and tired of.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. That's the thing. I'm not amazed by Democrats anymore because it's a long time coming.
Oh,
Look,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is the party that says a man can be a woman if the man says that they're a woman.
Yeah.
So you take that base right there and you say, okay, that's insane to believe that, because we know biologically it's not true.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with people that have those thoughts in their mind and the compassion that you may want to feel towards them.
And also their freedom to live their life the way they want to, as long as they're not violating the rights of others.
Right, as an adult.
Yep.
But the concept itself is absolutely insane. Men cannot be women. Women cannot be men.
We're not going to change science.
Right.
You can live however you want to. We're not going to change science.
And so for the fact that they have pushed that, and then you look at what has happened, you just look at it. I'm using that as a base that, you can take that and go to everything else that they talk about. We can run the grid on solar and wind. No, you can't. Everybody will love an EV. And the way to make an economy go is for the government to decide what products people will buy that the public is not asking to buy, and the manufacturers cannot make a profit on that product that government wants you to buy. So government then goes in and says, okay, we'll subsidize the daylights out of this product. You find out this product is only basically bought by people that are very well off, and the subsidies are paid for people that are not well off and can't afford an electric vehicle. And that's supposedly how we're supposed to run an economy, is government choosing what products we buy. That's crazy. It hasn't worked. And I say it hasn't worked because if you continue to do, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, socialism/communism, and believing you're going to get a different result. And you're not. And so you look at that, and then you look at the whole border debacle and what had happened and what Trump wanted to do when he was in office, and then Biden coming in and just reversing everything on day one.
Yeah.
And we knew this was going to happen, and we saw it happen immediately. And then when it happened immediately, he tried to blame Trump. It didn't work in the polls. So here we go through all this. Republican senators, it's like they live in some kind of bubble outside of what their constituents are thinking inside of the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, number one, you negotiated in secret. Number two, you wanted to get this bill and release it on a Sunday night and get it passed ASAP in a couple of days.
Yep.
Get this thing through.
Right.
Why?
Why?
Explain to the American public what's going on in the negotiations.
Right.
And then you had the GOP senators. Oh, no. Because we know everything was leaked. Now that we know, a couple of weeks later, everything that was leaked, the 4,000, 5,000, that was leaked. It was in the bill. We know.
Right.
And they're saying, well, it's being misconstrued. How? Well,
Right.
it doesn't mean that all 5,000 will get into the country that's encounters. Well, that's fine. You've defined encounters. Why can't it be 0?
Right.
Why would you have it? Why would you have that arbitrary number to begin with? Well, because if we had that arbitrary number, the border would be closed now. But if you get that down to 3,999, it wouldn't be closed. So that's not a good bill. Why would you propose that?
Right.
Well, you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. How? Why can't it be 0? Why are you giving discretion and ultimate discretion? And by the way, you saw that any lawsuit filed only goes to the D.C. court, the most liberal court. Congress says you have to take it only through the D.C. court.
Yeah.
Which is
which is
the most liberal court, which is the most liberal court out there. And so the discretion is Biden's, Mayorkas, and one of the most liberal courts, the Washington, D.C. federal court.
And it seems here, too, that everything was trying to help out Chuck. The Senate Majority Leader was getting, and I mean from the GOP senators who were on board with this, seemed like they were only trying to help Schumer. Because Schumer, at one point, he wasn't committed to it, but at some point, it was Thursday or Friday, they said, we'll release the bill, by Sunday, by the end of the day Sunday. And I said, yeah, it'll be 6 p.m. And actually, I was right. It was just after 6 p.m. And then we'll get it to a cloture vote quickly after that. And the media took that as a possible cloture vote even on Monday. As you just pointed out, release it Sunday evening, get a quick cloture vote on it, get this thing through, get it voted on, and whoa. Tap the brakes. Why are we in such a hurry to help Chuck? Why in the world would one GOP senator, aside from Romney, why would one GOP senator be on board with this? Why would you look at this and not look at everybody else and say, you guys are crazy? Come up with something else and I'm on board, but it would have to be much different than what I'm looking at.
So here's from thehill.com. According to one Senate source now, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell recommended to members that they vote against proceedings to the bill if it hits the floor on Wednesday. Right now, it's a work in progress. I'm not willing to do a funeral on it. Obviously, the House side, they've already conducted the funeral on it, said Senator James Langford. The lead GOP negotiator told reporters after a 90-minute meeting. Langford added he agrees with the plan not to move forward on the bill on Wednesday. If anyone had a thought that this is a finished product that comes out of it, that would not be the case. It still has to go through the amendment process whenever that happens. He's backing off.
He is backing off. Of course he's backing off.
As of Monday night, at least 19 Senate Republicans have signaled opposition to the bill, including Steve Daines, Deb Fisher, Nebraska, Katie Britt, Alabama, announced her intention to vote against the bill in its current form. Adding the problems for Langford and negotiators, there are signs that more problems could lie ahead with key members such as John Cornyn, saying on Monday he had serious concerns about the blueprint.
Yeah.
Senator Lindsey Graham, another key figure, added that he expects a robust amendment process in order to improve the bill, adding that the proposal will die otherwise.
He expects a robust process or a robust amendment? Okay. Love to hear more on that as to why.
A pair of Senate Democrats, Bob Menendez, Alex Padilla of California, also opposed the bill in its current form, bringing the total number of members against it to north of 20. 41 senators are needed to block it. Wow. Well, sorry, you can't sit there, do a border bill in secret, leak it out to the people, get angry when people don't like what they hear, Say you misunderstand it, and still today can't answer the question, why not make it 0 instead of 5,000 or 4,000 or whatever a day?
That's what I mean. This is already, for those GOP senators that are supporting this and whether they completely back down and don't go through with it or not, the damage, in my opinion, is already done. The damage with me is already done. If I lived in Oklahoma, I don't think I could cast a vote for Langford again. That would be very hard for me to do.
And the other thing is, what you're saying to the public is the border can be closed already right now. We just won't do it. We have the ability to close it because they're saying, well, it'd be closed down right now. Well, then just close it down right now. Do it. Biden doesn't need the approval. Close it down. You're saying we have the ability to close the border down right now. Well, then do it. Don't wait for the new piece of legislation.
The Democrats know what this is. They see it. They're just waiting for the GOP to lay down and hand this long-term victory to them. And that's exactly what it would be. You're going to punch a permanent hole in the border and make it nearly impossible to rescind.
They're talking about the 5,000 part of it, thehill.com. Trying to explain is becoming a headache for negotiators. That's the part where people are really focused on the most, to say, why 5,000? Why is it just 3 years? All the different aspects of it, the complexities of how to actually make it work for everybody's, to make it work makes everybody's head spin, Langford said. Well, yeah. You should be able to explain easily what's in a border security bill. It shouldn't be hard.
It's not confusing at all when you're telling the truth and when you stand on your principles. And if this is where your principles are, you're not a conservative. Get out. I have zero use, none whatsoever, for this kind of behavior. They're making it worse in their reluctance, Gary. Think about this. They're sitting here now, and it's like they're throwing their hands up going, oh, well, we don't know. There's a lot of confusion. Well, Langford, a week ago Sunday, there's a lot of internet rumors out there, and they need to stop. A week and a day later, well, there's a lot of confusion, and we don't know if get out. Get out. He's not. Did you hear him once yesterday say there's a bunch of internet rumors about the bill?
No.
Not once. No. And the reason is because we're all reading it multiple times. I've got my crayon out, the yellow one, of course, as a highlighter. And I'm going through it, and everybody else that cares about it is learning more and more details. And that's what they're dealing with. They actually said it. Langford actually said it. I think I had the quote just a few minutes ago. He was just basically saying, well, the more people learn about it, the more reluctance we have. Yeah, exactly. Because on that day that you were on, the Face the Nation, and then on Fox News Sunday, and then we came on, I think, that night and said, okay, great. We can settle all these internet rumors with one thing, the bill itself. And it took them another full week to get it out from that Sunday that he was on those two shows. So Chuck floated it this past Sunday, just after 6 p.m. This is garbage. This is garbage. And their attitude about it, about having to, walk this back, there's absolutely no excuse here.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Then I read this. Senator from thehill.com. Since I've got looking to the Hill to see how many Democrats, senators may be against this bill. The Hill said 2. You said Business Insider said 3, but they didn't name the other one.
They didn't name. In fact, they didn't name any of the 3. They said just 3 Democrats have come out against the bill. But again,
would that be Fetterman or
you mentioned Manchin, maybe.
But it says Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii said he was shocked at the rising GOP opposition, just gobsmacked. I've never seen anything like it. Schatz said on Monday on a post on X, they literally demanded specific policy, got it, and then killed it. Yeah. They might have demanded some of it, but Republicans weren't demanding that bill.
Right.
There might have been some things that they said, okay, this is where we want to head. But the fact is, the majority of the Republican Party is not for it. And there's a reason. There's a reason because you've set the limit. People don't understand the 5,000 part of it.
Right.
The fact that everything would be adjudicated in the Washington federal courts, which means Texas would have to go to one of the most liberal courts there is to get anything done.
Right. Yeah.
And any lawsuit would have to be filed there. And then there's still great discretion, as you said 12 times in it.
Yeah.
Great discretion given to the president and Mayorkas.
Right.
No Republican was calling for that.
Right.
Because we know what they've done with their discretion. They haven't followed the law.
I don't know what Lindsey Graham was referring to about, an amendment. Basically, he's saying without an amendment, that fixes it, it's probably not going to pass. I don't know what you can do to fix this heaping, steaming pile. Maybe burn it to the ground and get rid of it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. Interesting as I read more, because we read what Lindsey Graham said before. Well, he's not for it in the current process, but if in the amendment process, if the right of amendments were added, I've seen more Republicans coming out and saying that now. Senator Roger Marshall came out against the border security bill, warning it could actually make border security worse. My top priority last year was to secure the border. They did not give me a bill that secures the border. It actually makes the border worse. Elections have consequences. What we know is Joe Biden's goal every day is as many people across the border, legally or illegally, as he can. Donald Trump's going to shut the border down on the first day. They both, whoever is president, has the authority, the ability to put it down right now. Marshall added he could be persuaded to back the deal after a very rigorous amendment process. Well, we have Republicans saying that. Well, specifically, what would your amendments be?
Yeah, that's the problem with this whole thing. Well, we might just have to change it how? Take those 12 times, the word discretion appears 12 times, at least according to my search in the bill. You can take those out. There's 12 words that 12 fewer words. The number 5,000, take 2 of the zeros and the 5 out. Leave 1 0. What kind of amendment? Because the amendment means, this is the problem with the whole thing. The amendment means you've got to go back to the Democrats. Because you're not going to get it done. You're 49, they're 51, remember?
Yeah, you're going to have to get more concessions out of them. He said, the bill as written, I'm a hell no. Maybe this is when negotiations start. We'll see. But if this is the bill we're voting on, then I'm done. But again, we do not get what that rigorous amendment process is, at least in this story. Maybe he said it to the reporter and the reporter didn't put it in. But I'd like to see specifically what the Republicans would agree to on this, what amendments they would put in and what they would take out.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'm reading through some of the coverage several hours ago. Politico posted a story on it about, how the support from the GOP seems to be waning. And here's a quote from Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, the other senator from Oklahoma. And here's a quote. I mean, 3 minutes after the text was released, people were saying it's a crap bill. Wow. It took them 3 minutes. It didn't take me that long. There's been people saying that Langford is immoral. If that guy's immoral, I'm literally swimming in flames. I'll Keith Morrison this a little bit. Well, Senator Mullen, tell me what you're up to if you're swimming in flames. Because I'm not saying, this, by the way, I don't know who's saying Langford is immoral. I'm saying he doesn't need to be a senator or at least a GOP senator. He doesn't need to call himself a conservative if you're not strong about the border. If you're not strong on the border, you're not a conservative. Sorry, full stop. And if you were promoting this and then a week ago, Sunday, saying it's all a bunch of internet rumors and blah, 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 blah. And again, Mullen, he doesn't point out to where he's not debating the bill. He's just criticizing people that are criticizing the bill. Well, tell us what's wrong with the criticism. Tell us where we're wrong. Tell us where the people who are outraged about this are wrong. Specifically, I don't care about Langford. I don't care about you. I don't care about the people involved.
I don't care about Trump.
I don't care about Trump. Let's talk about the bill.
Right.
Tell us where we're wrong, Mr. Mullen, Senator Mullen.
Now, he said he couldn't comment on it a few days ago because there is no text.
Right. No, that's the other thing, too.
And so the easy thing is to come out and say, well, it's unfair to call my colleague, the other senator from Oklahoma, it's wrong to call him immoral.
Yeah, right.
I will say this. When you do what they did in this case, and I believe some Republican senators were involved in this. I don't know if he specifically, but he was part of the negotiating team. That when you negotiate a bill in secret for months, understanding what the temperament is and what's going on, and that the Democrats support a president that is not enforcing current law, and you negotiate, with them in secret, and then you leak to both the liberal and the conservative media parts of what is in the bill, or it gets leaked, however it does. And I believe they did that to see the trial balloon on it.
Yeah.
So you were warned about the 3,000, the 4,000, the 5,000 limit, whatever, that people were extremely concerned about that. Another week goes by. You're still promoting that there's internet rumors and things like that. The bill comes out. It's in the bill, and you still can't explain it.
Well, there's lots of confusion.
When you can't explain it, and now you're not fully behind the bill because you don't want to see it go through the Wednesday vote, well, then you're the problem with it. As to your immorality, I'll let others judge that, but the process of how you did it was an insult to the Republican voter out there.
If you're not going to be direct with the American people on something like this, as a conservative,
you're an immoral conservative.
well, that's the problem. I have to question your morals because I have to question your motive. I have to question what it is you want out of this. Tell me what it is that you're trying to gain that is more important than sealing the southern border. Tell me what that would be.
Here's a question for all these Republican senators. Would you agree to this bill as a standalone bill, or are you only doing it because the funding for Ukraine and Israel?
Right. Right. Would you vote on this as a standalone bill? And I was saying yesterday, let's cut this thing into three. Ukraine funding, Israel funding, border bill. Ready? Go. You know, that's the insanity. This whole thing of, well, we're reaching across the aisle. Well, bipartisan. The word bipartisan drives me crazy.
The reason that we have the monstrous debt today that Powell says, Jerome Powell, we've got to do something about, is because of bipartisanship.
Exactly.
Bipartisanship many times makes the problem worse.
Right.
Sometimes it can make the problem better. I have seen, in my experience, the majority of the time, it makes things worse.
You and I, we'll make a point, by the way, because the liberal media never calls it bipartisan when a handful of Democrats jump on board and get the vote done with Republicans, and it's something that we believe should be done. The liberal media, well, why is it that 5 Democrats can have all this, or Manchin? Remember Manchin?
Oh, yeah.
Why is it that one person has all this? Whoa.
Wait a minute. That's right. Democrats wanted to get rid of the Senate because of Manchin.
Exactly.
They wanted the Senate gone out of the Constitution.
Yeah, they didn't call him a maverick, did they? and that's the thing, is that, you know, they want to pick and choose. And you look at this, and this is the kind of behavior that we've been seeing for a long, long time. The late Senator John McCain, as a senator, this is the way he behaved, and this reaching across the aisle thing, this going further left, and you're basically now the GOP, and we've seen it over and over again. We saw that heaping, steaming pile of a bill that came out of the House with the expanded child welfare. They're calling it expanded child tax credit, but this is something that we have seen over and over again. When the populace, you and I have been doing this a long time, and over the years it's been, well, they're all the same, and no, they are. I mean, not all of them. Nothing applies to all, but the two parties are melding into one.
Well, remember, even when McCain was a so-called maverick, you're talking 15 years ago, when the Democrats would be their position on many of the issues would be considered moderate today.
Well, remember,
because they've gone so
Harry Reid.
They've gone so insanely insane.
Harry Reid
on the issues.
I want to say, it was one of his last years in service, but he was talking about barriers or walls on the border. In order to protect the border, we need barriers on the border. You're not hearing Democrats say that. You're not hearing, it was a very different political climate. And you still had enough conservatives in the GOP to keep our wits about us. And now, because this is why it scares me, is that in the House they go, well, Johnson, that's DOA. And then when he saw it Sunday night, his reaction was, wow, it's worse than we thought. And it's DOA in the House. Okay, well, hey, how's that, expanded welfare bill that you guys passed going to do in the Senate, you think? I mean, this is the ludicrous problem that we have with the GOP right now on Capitol Hill, is that while you've got some GOP senators on board with this border bill, and let's say it dies in the Senate and doesn't get over to the House, it doesn't mean that the mindset goes away. And that's a problem. That's a problem, because it means they're going to take a swing at it probably somewhere down the road again. This is not representation of how the majority of the American people feel when it comes to the border. And quite unfortunately, most people aren't wonks like us in our audience and conservatives and people who, pay attention to a lot of the details. They're not rabbit holes, they're details. And you get into the weeds on this. And this is the thing. This is why it was falling short when Langford was on the Sunday morning shows a week ago, Sunday. And his internet rumors. And your first response was, well, what? Rumors about what? Specifically, what is false about what people are saying? And then I'm pretty sure he lied at that. I got to go back and listen to the quote again about what he said about talking about the 5,000 people versus what the bill says. Because he's not being fully honest with you. First of all, floating this heaping, steaming pile is disingenuous and is not proper for the American people. It's not proper for this nation. But when you get on there and say, well, people are, and then Mullen, rather, when he was saying, well, people are 3 minutes, what would he say? 3 minutes after the text was released, people were saying it's a crap bill. Yeah, we were pretty sure 3 minutes before it was released, it was a crap bill. And the reason is because how these GOPers were behaving in the media.
Well, they want it. This whole thing is about politics. Look at Sharpton yesterday. This is Sharpton, what Sharpton said, Al Sharpton. What is being done to get the public to really rise up in various states to say their senators that they want to see the border issue resolved. You're getting migrants beating up policemen in the streets of New York. You're seeing an influx of migrants all over the country that, frankly, is people outraged. Couldn't there be some kind of public pressure put in the next couple of days in some of these senators' states saying, why are you allowing this to continue? Because at the end of the day, senators have to deal with their voters. After mentioning funding for Israel and Gaza, Sharpton went back to the border, referring to the migrant crisis as an invasion, a term that sparks outrage among immigration activists and the left. But the border, we're looking every day at the invasion of migrants, and they're playing a time game with politics on this. Couldn't the pressure be put to bear on their home states? So this is a complete reversal. Tell me one time when Al Sharpton has ever said those particular words about what has been going on.
Never.
Since the quote, to use his term, invasion began during the beginning of the Biden administration.
If you asked me which cable news personality said this and you just read the quote, I would have said, sounds like Hannity.
Yep. Al Sharpton. This is and this is what they're trying to do. We've come up with a bill to solve the problem when they haven't.
No.
And that's why we tore it apart and yesterday, and then Andrew McCarthy with the exact same points that we have had. It's already law.
Yeah.
You don't need this.
Right.
You can close this.
Right.
You don't need to do all of this.
You don't need a bill. It's what I asked yesterday. Why do we need a new bill?
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Let's head to Andy in Butler, Pennsylvania, about the border bill. Andy, welcome. You're on Red Eye Radio. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, good evening. Thank you very much for taking my call. I think part of what I heard you guys say is dead on. If they split this bill up into three bills, one for the border, one for Ukraine, one for Israel, the only one Joe Biden had signed would be the one for Ukraine, because all he really wants is money for Ukraine. He doesn't care about the border. And so if you give him this bill, he's going to send money to Ukraine. He won't send any to Israel, and he'll find reasons not to do what this bill says. For instance, there's money in there for the border wall. He's not going to start building the border wall. He'll go back to, well, we got to figure out what kind of wall we want to build, and we have to get through all these environmental impact statements before we can build more wall. So,
and there's less than a billion,
genuine.
and there's less than $1 billion for the wall.
Right.
So
exactly.
it would, and with inflation, it probably would cost, if it was $25 billion during when Trump was president, it probably would be $40 billion today.
I was going to say $200 billion, but that's the inflation in D.C.
You know, Andy, what I see is I don't believe that it's so much that Biden wants funding for Ukraine. I think the White House wants to get the Republicans on board because they don't believe they can get the border under control. They have no reason to get the border under control.
Right.
They don't believe they should politically because it's hurting them. They know it's hurting them, but they want to bring the Republicans on board to say
to own part of it.
There's still the problem still at the border, but Republicans passed the bill.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I had one other quick thought, too, and it goes exactly with what you're saying there. I believe Mr. Biden could close the border right now if he chose to. But what he wants is a law passed that says, well, then he's going to say, well, I can't stop it until it's over 5,000 a day because the law says we're allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
He could do it right now.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he wants to cover to let 5,000 a day in. My thought there.
No, I think you're right. I know.
agree.
I think he wants to say that. Oh no, my hands are by law. I would love to, but by law. No, I think you're. I think you're spot on. And I think Gary's right. I think they just want the Republicans to have to own part of this before November 5th. Thank you, Andy. We appreciate the call. Thank you so much.
About to trigger somebody right now. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley on Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. I like this.
What?
This headline. New. President Trump offers to replace Biden for Super Bowl interview. Ratings gold. The post-millennial. New. President Trump offers to replace Biden for Super Bowl interview. Ratings gold.
And it would be. It is every time. By the way, I think it is the strategy of the left media. I mean, we know it is at MSNBC now, but they don't want to put Trump on. They don't want to put him on. In 2016, he got, $2.2 billion worth of free advertising airtime?
They threw that number out. I don't know whether it was accurate or not. But
with inflation, I think it's $4.2 billion now.
That's why it wasn't accurate.
It was actually more. But they don't want to do that. It would be ratings gold. That would be the television I would watch on Super Bowl Sunday. I don't care about the Super Bowl.
Well, he can't. There was an audio cut. I got to find it here. There was an audio cut going around yesterday. It actually was from late November at a conference. It was New York. It was sponsored by the New York Times, and Kevin McCarthy was there. And he went in and said, you don't negotiate with Trump, with Biden. There is no negotiating.
Right.
You can't sit there with Biden and bring up and say, well, look, we need to do this. If it's not on the card that he's given, he can't talk about it with you.
Right.
That everything is on a card. And if it's not on the card, you can't get anything out of the president. That it's and you and I asked this question with everything that's going on right now, as a war is now escalating. You've seen that the Iran proxies now are striking back at the United States. You saw that the Pentagon in an interview yesterday saying not one person was killed in any of the raids that they did on the proxies. Was that in Iran? I forgot exactly which one.
In Iraq, you mean?
Was that in Iraq or whatever? And it's like, because they're giving plenty of time. They're telling the enemy where they're going to strike and when they're going to strike.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I think it was Jake Sullivan was on one of the news channels and said, well, it doesn't matter, whether we strike on this day or this day or this day. And then within a minute was talking about how timing is so critically important. I mean, you listen to these people and it's like you're dealing with a government run. I'm really expecting them to say, look, we need to put into the bill, we need to have the cigarette lounges for students, like when you and I were in high school.
Yeah.
And that's what the high school.
Yeah, right.
I'm running for president of the student council, and I know that sounds strange to young people today, but over a half century ago, the big thing for student governments was to attempt to get a smoking lounge for students.
Yeah. Yep. And
not today, but and
now it's a weed lounge. A weed vaping lounge.
An edible smorgasbord.
Edibles in the vending machine. I'm probably not wrong about that.
Oh, but that was fascinating watching. Watching Kevin McCarthy. This goes back to November.
Yeah,
he said, if it's not on the card, you don't negotiate with the president. You negotiate with whoever's giving him the card, because if you want to negotiate, it's not on the card. They got to give him the right card, and then he'll start talking to you about it.
Right.
But everything he does, he needs a card.
Right.
That's unbelievable when the former speaker of the House says this is how you have to deal with this president. And then yesterday,
it's why he probably won't be on the debate stage.
And the most bizarre thing is it was full court ahead yesterday on the hidden fees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For concert tickets, and
yeah,
they don't call them hidden. What are they? What is his name for it?
Service fees or something.
Service fees, yeah,
yeah.
And then he was like, and it shouldn't cost any more for a father and a child to sit together on an airplane. It's like, what do you?
Yeah,
and it's like, it's like when the question comes up now, and I've seen it not lately, but in the last couple of years. Like, even if you're in coach, you can't switch seats anymore.
No,
because so many of the seats you have to pay for.
Right. Yeah.
And so they don't let you switch.
Right.
And so the whole thing of somebody coming up, to you and saying, "Look, I want to sit next to my child," and you're like, "Well, I'm in a seat that I paid for." Well, I paid for my seat, but I don't want to pay for my child's seat. Well, then you want me to pay for your child's seat,
right?
Because I paid for it, and now you want your child to sit here, and so I mean that's one of the things going on right now is about, in fact, what's going on in airplanes that they charge, for seating now, unless you're a premium flyer, unless you fly all the time and build up the points. For the most part, you can't. But he was talking about that yesterday, Biden. It's unfair. It's like,
yeah,
where is this guy? I mean, and I'm like, well, he's not creating that. Trump. Biden isn't sitting there going, I think it's time to put out a tweet like
he's not
Trump
creating
did.
it. He's not creating it.
No, his staff is.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's go back to the service fees again.
Yeah.
Let's make sure. And you and I said, well, the reason they want to take this stand against fees is because they're the same people that have said, okay, if you're selling concert tickets and make any more,
yeah,
then the advertised price of that ticket, well, then the IRS is going to be looking for you. So he's got to come out against service fees then, right? We're fighting for service fees.
Yeah.
Against service fees. They're not going to get rid of service fees. It's not going to happen.
Well, and this is the thing, too. I would love to be a secret insider to the organization. And you know what I would say? Mr. President, we got a new set of cards for you to read from today. We're going to go after government fees. All those hidden government fees. Yeah, serious. I'm serious. And that would be my play on this. But he's not going to be on a debate stage. It's not going to happen. If he can't, and we've already known this, he can't make an appearance right now without something being, on a prompter. And he can't get the prompter right. The Babylon Bee, I mean, their headlines are just relentless. Something the other day, one story was like, and it had a quote from him, and the quote ended in, because he mumbles all the time. He can't get the cards right. Anybody expect him to be able to debate on a stage? He won't be able to.
Yeah, I did see an ad yesterday. Let's get ready to mumble.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, directed at Biden.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have some of the PACs are going to do it. I saw one that was put together, of him the number of times just hesitating and being clueless. It's you'd sit there and you would say, if you did that to anybody else and put that out there, you'd be accused of being mean and bullying.
Yeah,
that you would be. But he's the president of the United States, and when you see it, it is quite frightening. Because the number of times that he has no idea where he's going. And when you see Kevin McCarthy from that video that came out the other day talk about the fact that you can't negotiate nobody negotiates with the president. You don't talk to the president. He's got cards. And if it's on the card, he'll talk to you about it. If it's not on the card, he won't talk to you about it.
Right.
So it was amazing, McCarthy saying that. Where is it here? I want to get to the thing yesterday of the polling on. Okay, here it is. When companies sneak hidden junk fees into families' bills, it can take hundreds of dollars a month out of their pockets and make it harder to make ends meet. That might not matter to the wealthy, but it's real money to hardworking families, and it's just plain wrong. And then again, the one before that. We've made progress, but there's much more work to be done to lower costs for American families. That's why I'm taking action to bring down the price of insulin, prescription drugs, energy, and eliminating hidden junk fees companies use to rip you off. You're not getting rid of junk fees.
No.
In fact, if you really want to look at junk fees, you go to the airlines and you look at all the fees from the federal government that they lay out for you. And one of the reasons the left actually, remember, it was the truth in or transparency or truth in pricing laws.
Right.
And they said it's wrong for when you go to your airline site and it gives you the price of like $600 for a flight, and then by the time you get to the end of the end of it to check out, it's $800, and that's unfair because you should have the $800 up front because that's full transparency. Well, what they failed to mention is no. You got full transparency because you saw $600 and then you saw your final price is $800 and you went, why is it $800?
Yeah.
And then you looked and all the government junk fees were listed. Since they're all junk fees, why can't they be government junk fees? All the junk fees were listed right there.
Yep. Well, and that's it. That's why I was saying I'd love to be an insider and say, okay, the American people are really concerned about this. We think it's going to help you with the election, Mr. President. We're going to go after those junk government fees. Those hidden government fees. Yeah, that is serious. And I, the problem that I have right now, and no, it's not just one, but we have this president who is incoherent and is also not capable as commander-in-chief. And that's I believe, a very dangerous situation. But long-term, we also have a party that I have supported for a long time that is moving further left and then acting like children and liars when they're confronted about it. And this needs to stop.
Here it is, because nobody's really arguing these points. I mean, I'm sure if you book a flight, you're going, I wish it was cheaper. You ought to be able to fly with your child and sit next to them without paying an additional fee. It's time for all airlines to offer fee-free family seating.
Well, then they'll just raise the price of all seats.
Yeah.
Just average it out.
Right.
And everybody will pay more.
Right. They'll just charge you more.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no fee. It's just the price is more.
Yeah. Well, I just need to have people, chip in for gas.
Because the fee is for the seats that you're in.
Yeah. There's a reason. They're desirable, and people are willing to pay.
Right.
Like I paid $90 extra to get the middle seat. It was just a few months ago.
And there it is. Have you ever bought tickets for the big game based on one price, but then noticed it ticked up at checkout due to hidden fees? Economists call that drip pricing, and companies use it to rip you off. Under my administration, we're putting an end to those hidden junk fees. Where?
Where is that?
Where is that? I haven't noticed it in any concert ticket or any sports ticket. Have you?
I haven't been into a concert since David Lee Roth left Van Halen, but no. I've gotten a few. I've gotten a few. I have my Steve Hackett tickets for April 4th. Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're
going to see Tool in April. I didn't look at the ticket.
Yeah, but there's fees on. They didn't stop. Let's put it this way: Ticketmaster or any other ticket service did not stop the fees.
Yeah. If Maynard asked me to pay $2,000 for a ticket, I would have said, "Whoa!" But that wasn't the case.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the show, McDonald's CEO promises affordability amid backlash over $18 Big Mac combos and $6 hash browns.
But will it be shrinkflation affordability?
A small fry will be a small fry.
It will be one small fry. Because you say, yeah, can I get a small fry? Oh, yeah, we can do that for you.
And MSNBC goes to the barber shop and learns from black voters why they're considering Trump.
Okay, all right.
That and more coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Happy Tuesday.
Well, here we had it. Jerome Powell finally called for deficit reduction in his 60-minute interview. 60 minutes. I said minute. It is plural. We mostly try very hard not to comment on fiscal policy and instruct Congress how to do their job when actually they have oversight over us, he said. Mostly is doing some work there, as Powell did call for fiscal support during the COVID pandemic, and he downplayed the possibility of the American Rescue Plan Act contributing to inflation. Until now, he has been quiet about the deficit, even though the excessive government spending makes it more difficult for the Fed to fulfill its mandate for price stability. But he gave some nonpartisan, just the facts view of the deficit. In the long run, the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. The U.S. federal government is on an unsustainable fiscal path, and that just means that the debt is growing faster than the economy. As we brought up to you, I think it was late last week, looking at the actual numbers. When asked whether it worries him, Powell said over the long run, of course it does. Effectively, we're borrowing from future generations. It's time for us to get back to putting a priority on fiscal sustainability. The sooner is better than later. And I don't know when you do what you do when you get to the point of where we are right now, where it's almost impossible not to continue increasing the debt without the public not being in an uproar.
Yeah,
because you would have to cut severely. The budget this year is what, like $6 trillion, and we probably be running a 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 trillion dollar debt on $6 trillion in spending.
Yeah.
So roughly
a deficit. You mean
deficit? Yeah. So it was a deficit, right? That will add to the debt. That is, you're over 30%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if our debt is, think about this, if we're spending $6 trillion and the interest on the debt is above $1 trillion, that's a sixth of your budget is interest.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to raise taxes. They all talk about raising taxes. Any taxes they raise on the rich is not going to do anything. We explained it a couple of weeks ago, and thanks to the number of people that commented on it. But we had a gentleman who called because we were talking about the fact that Trump said he could pay off the deficit with oil.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like, no, you can't. It's like, number one, the country doesn't own the oil.
Right. We don't get all of that. The revenue from the taxes and fees and leases and all of that wouldn't even come close.
And so we had a caller who said, yeah, but you're doing the wrong thing. We're getting it from the leases.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, well, I've got the figures of what we make on all the leases in front of me. Because he said the leases we'd be able to make it down. I said, no, we wouldn't. Because the leases, if for oil, natural gas, are a little bit above $4 billion a year. And then if you take the mining and forestry, whatever, because that takes up 80%, and we figured it out in our head, we said, okay, let's be generous. $5 billion you'd be able to raise if you took all of that. And as I explained to the gentleman on the previous day, in 24 hours, the debt increased $32 billion. I said,
yeah.
And so you're talking $5 billion a year. In one day it increased. And just trying to, and we started out, it got to be a little bit heated back and forth, but at the end I think he understood exactly what I was saying. And then I saw, was it last week one day, it was like the debt went up $45 billion in one day.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
And so, and the only point we were trying to bring is to show you, just what a huge problem it is. It was the same thing when we said, look, it's a bunch of malarkey. Remember? Well, no, if we legalize pot, well, then we can pay for everything. It's like, no, we can't.
Yeah, legalize it and tax it, and we can pay the debt down and blah blah. No.
Doesn't. That's how bad the situation. That's how bad it is, and you look at this, and it isn't a major discussion of the border bill, but it's another $118 billion that goes right on the debt. There is no, pay as you go here.
Right.
There is no, okay, we need to, if we spend this amount, we need to have offsets over here.
Right.
None of that. We're just spending and spending and spending and spending. And so the fact that Powell, finally spoke on it, it's like, duh. But, look, the American Rescue Act that you were all for. Remember how the Fed downplayed inflation? Remember how the Treasury Department downplayed inflation?
Right.
You know,
it's transitory.
It's transitory.
It'll be gone by next week.
And so, you know, we've talked, you know, I can't believe it did get that one person, the one caller, very upset when, you know, we give the analogy. And it seems like every time I give that analogy that I came up with swimming a couple of years ago when I was just bored swimming like 2 miles in the pool. So instead of thinking of beaches and women in bikinis, I'm thinking, how can I simplify explaining the national debt?
Well, yeah, because, you know, you're old.
That's what you think about when you get old.
Women are sitting around your pool. Hey, Gary, you want to do something? Yeah, give me a pencil and a paper.
I need to simplify how to explain the national debt. And for those of you who don't know, it's simply that we always put it into somebody who's making, you know, and in this case, $40,000 a year, and you're spending $60,000 a year. You've got debt of unsecured credit card debt of $340,000 and another $1 to $2 million in debt that you have to pay, or expenses that are mandatory that you have to pay off in the next, you know, 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you go, well, you can't do it. It's impossible. And some people get, you can't make this. Sure you can. It's just simply a way to explain how a person's personal debt would be tough to pay versus a government. And, of course, we understand it's different because the government can still borrow a heck of a lot more, where a person in that particular fiscal situation would not be able to borrow a lot more.
Gary, some breaking news just as you're saying this, and this may have influenced the administration and or Biden campaign, is just moments ago. President Biden has announced that he will, through executive order, outlaw using too many zeros.
Well, that would make the junk fees go down.
The junk government fees.
You've solved the junk fee problem.
Yeah. And the problem is all those zeros. We don't need numbers like trillion. By the way, Elizabeth Warren is also on board. I don't know why that made me laugh. See, I know how to get rid of the billionaires. We're gonna outlaw zeros. That's the problem. We have too many zeros.
Well, you know, when we talk about fiscal matters and just liberalism in general, I think that you really can encapsulate where liberalism is today based on the reparations movement in California.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was a perfect example of how, well, I'll say this, if I was a liberal, how frustrating it would be if I was a liberal. Because you just, there's an expectation that somebody else is going to take care of you. You know, we've talked about that, General, the pathology of dependency. But then when it gets to something like reparations, and you know, the Newsom brings it up, gets the panel, everybody's excited. It's all about how much money are we going to get, and then you've got the liberal activists out there saying, okay, all right, well, $240,000 per eligible recipient, you know, if you fit these certain categories. No, it's got to be more than that. Okay, $1 million. No, it's got to be more than that. $2 million. No, it's got to be more than that. $5 million. All right, we'll settle on $5 million, even though some believe that it should be up in the $200 million range. All right, what will that cost us, the $5 million? Oh. Hundreds upon hundreds of billions of dollars that we don't have. All right, well, never mind. It was never about money to begin with.
Yeah.
We're going to do different things.
Yeah.
Because it's never been about the money when all it's been about is the money. But the more during the process, as we noticed, you got more positive credits for your virtue signaling, the more you discussed and promoted an impossible amount to give to people for reparations that couldn't possibly happen in any state. They couldn't do it, but you built up your you built up your liberal cred by promoting amounts that would be impossible to do.
Right.
And the more impossible it was, the more you could virtue signal that I care more about you because I'm promoting something that's absolutely impossible. And if I promote the impossible and get you excited about something that you're never going to see, I care more about you, especially when you're disappointed and you find out you're getting nothing. Or as Don Johnson would say, diddly and squat.
Mm-hmm.
From the old Miami Vice. He said squat. He didn't say diddly.
Mm-hmm.
But and so that encapsulated liberalism where it is in 2024 perfectly. Absolutely perfectly.
Yep.
The same thing, and you see it on other areas. You know, we can run the grid on solar and wind. No, you can't. Yes, we can, and we're going to continue doing it. But you can't. It's impossible, which means I care more than you do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm willing to destroy our economic, energy, and national security. I'm willing to commit energy, economic, and national security suicide in my proposal that's impossible, which means I care more than you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are. That's liberalism in 2024.
Yep.
You know, we saw it with socialized medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, okay, let's vote for it in Colorado. No, people don't want it. It's too expensive. California, okay, we'll pass the bill, but we won't have any way to pay for it. Sorry, that can't go through. You got to be able to pay for it. Vermont, they couldn't do it. The only way that they can get nationalized health care is to put it on the backs of future generations that aren't born yet.
Yep.
Borrow the money. That's why they want the federal government to do it. But when they have to pay for it themselves, no, we don't wish to do it. And that's, again, the perfect example of liberalism you saw with that, even in Obamacare, when you saw the people in California that supported it and just said, look, I support Obamacare, but my health insurance costs went up. I wanted it to be free. I didn't think I was going to have to pay for it. Perfect liberalism. Perfect.
Yeah.
There's some fantasy money tree out there that does everything. Or if I don't get everything I want, there must be some rich person that I can get it from.
Well, and it's the perfect turnaround on that liberalism, too. Starting with the governor himself, Newsom, oh, well, listen, we're going to start exploring reparations. He's putting on his Superman cape. And then it gets back to him. I don't know. What was it? A little over a year later? Gets back to him. Oh, well, it's not about the money. Wow.
It's never about the money.
Wow. Did that boomerang hurt when it hit you?
When you and I first saw that, I think we burst out laughing together and went together in unison. It's always been about the money.
Always been about the money. And you started with making it about the money. California, we'll find a way. Well, it doesn't have to be about money. How about a card? We're sorry, smiley face. I mean, seriously. And I love that kind of turnaround when liberalism, that's a boomerang, man, that doesn't go very far. I love it.
And even when the people that were proposing the amounts like $1 million or $5 million, they were asked, well, how do you come up with that? Well, look, that's not what we're dealing with right now. What we're dealing with is what is actually justified and the correct amount for reparations. It's going to be up to government to find some way to pay it because they owe it.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, that's really going to help your argument, isn't it? The money isn't there.
Yep.
And you're just involved in virtue signaling. I'm better than you. I care more than you because I'm advocating for the impossible. 866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. When driving, you need to manage the space around your vehicle so that there's enough space to allow you to adjust when traffic conditions change. The space ahead of your vehicle is the most important and one of the easiest to monitor and adjust as needed. One rule of thumb is to allow at least 1 second for each 10 feet of vehicle length at speeds below 40 miles per hour. At greater speeds, add an additional second. It's impossible to keep other drivers from tailgating you, but there are some things you can do to make it safer, such as increasing your following distance, avoiding quick lane changes, and slowing down. There are also several things you should do to ensure that there is plenty of space between the side of your vehicle and other vehicles. Don't hug the center line, avoid hugging the right side of the road, and avoid traveling alongside other vehicles in strong winds, especially crosswinds. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, yeah, Jerome Powell yesterday, or on 60 Minutes on Sunday, saying the spending is unsustainable. No kidding. And also the Fed now is wary of cutting rates too soon, which we expected. We always.
Well, because we were watching some of the analysts and toward the end of the year saying, well, they could start cutting rates as early as March. And I said, whoa. Because if they start cutting rates as early as March, that means they're really worried about a recession. So if that doesn't happen, and now if they're going to play this game which, I mean, it's all a game anyway, I don't think they were serious about inflation. I've been saying that since the beginning. But if they're not as worried about a recession, I was watching Charles Payne the other day on Fox Business News, and he was saying, not him, but he was observing that a lot of analysts now have quit talking recession, that they don't think it's going to happen. And so if Jerome Powell thinks that, then, okay, we probably will see interest rates kind of float where they are, at least until Election Day, possibly, I guess. We'll see.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and good morning. Just we were talking about the Fed here, and just reading this from Breitbart. The possibility of an interest rate is the most underpriced risk in the market right now. Breitbart economics editor John Carney told Fox News host Larry Kudlow in a Monday interview. Kudlow noted that Monday's Institute for Supply Management survey of business executives, like Friday's blowout jobs report, shows the economy heating up, and then calls and thus calling into question Wall Street's hope for multiple interest rates cuts this year from the Fed. While we're talking about the economy being too strong to cut rates, we got an ISM services number today that was also a very, very strong number. Carney said, that's right, it was much hotter than expected, the largest month-to-month price increase from December to January in 12 years. As Carney said, two measures of the service side of the economy indicated on Monday an increase in activity in January. So what happens with Cuts, I don't see them coming. I don't see one coming now in March. I didn't see one coming before, but I just don't.
I don't think it's going to be in March, and I don't know when it would be throughout the year. I mean, I don't know when it would be this year because, all right, I guess you could say that, it would be politically motivated, basically, to help the Biden administration. You might see one in the summer, maybe. But how far do you go with it? How far could they go with it to get enough momentum, back into the economy with rate cuts? I mean, I guess you could do a total of a half a point between now. Well, they could do as much as they want, but they're at any given time, they're only going to do a quarter of a point, likely, in terms of the cuts. And then my question would be, what's your target rate? Well, their target rate in terms of raising the rates is about where we are now. Others believe it should have been higher in terms of getting on top of inflation. But what would you see as the, point in terms of lowering the rates? What would the Fed target rate be? And I'd love to hear that. But things change. They're back and forth. In December, they're talking, well, we could see this and, we might be able, or we might raise the rates a couple more times. And then a month later, oh, no, things look great. Well, things don't turn around that quickly. So it tells you, obviously, there's other motivation, which I think anybody paying attention knows that is the case.
That's the other thing that, again, and I haven't been able to find any analysis on this. We know the story that had come out last week that U.S. companies in January announced more than 82,300 job cuts, 136% increase in December. And then the job increases were what, 331,000?
Right. I think that was
was the job number that came out last Friday, and everybody's sitting back going, "Oh, how? How does one jive with another?" And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, except somebody's numbers may be wrong.
Yeah.
Now, this was new analysis from the executive coaching firm Challenger, Gray and Christmas, but it seemed to get a ton of publicity last week. It wasn't official government numbers, but this number came out, and you had a ton of media over it as if it's a credible number from this organization. And I haven't been able to look at – and I did get questions about this over the weekend, though, from some listeners. And I answer, I go, I don't know. I haven't seen any analysis on this whatsoever. I don't know which numbers are more accurate because, as we know, government always revises numbers down the road. So at the moment, I don't know. I don't know what to think about the fact that layoffs went up tremendously in January, yet the economy looked pretty good.
Well, and, when it comes to the unemployment report, these basically are a series of surveys. And so as we go along, these revisions basically add more of those surveys being completed. I think there's two different, there's the first number on any given month, and then one revision and a second revision. And that has to do with those surveys being completed, basically. And so over 350,000 in January added. And no, I would love to see what's going on there. What is that? Because keep in mind, one person can go to, if they're, let's say one individual works for a placement agency, a temp agency. If they go to 4 different locations in a month, let's say they're going to go to one site and work for a week, and each week of the month they show up at 4 different sites, that's counted as 4 jobs. It's one person being employed. And that's the problem I have with the unemployment report.
Who's getting laid off in 2024? January job cuts, mostly financial and tech. The January layoffs represent the highest number of job cuts announced in the first month of a year since January of 2009, and you know where we were then.
Yeah.
In January of 2009. So financial firms announced the largest number of layoffs last month at more than 23,000, which represents the highest number of job cuts for the industry since September of 2018. One of the biggest layoff announcements in the sector came from Citigroup, which said its plans on cutting 20,000 jobs. Tech employees suffered the second largest number of layoffs, with almost 16,000 people losing their jobs. So that came out last week. Then the good number of new jobs came out a couple of days later. And how do you, when you look at this, how do you reconcile the numbers? I don't at the moment. I don't know where to go with it.
Well, and here's the thing, too, because ADP, they issue a national employment report. They are a payroll company. Your employer may use ADP for processing payroll. They are the largest payroll company. And so they put out a report. Usually it's 2 days before, I think it's always 2 days before the unemployment report. So their report, which came out for January of this year, says private employers added 107,000 jobs in January. That's a huge difference, 107 versus 350.
Well, you have to ask the question then, how many are part-time? And since there is so much, because we know the part of the increase of the GDP has been because of government spending. And the GDP does not to us is not the best indicator of actual economic health.
Right.
We've always viewed, the goods and services that are produced, durable goods, services, those numbers show you that the economy is actually growing wealth-wise. The GDP can be, as we know, can be skewed with tons of government money just flowing through, and therefore that money flowing through is part of the GDP, yet it is not wealth producing, or is not the best wealth producing you could do from that money because it comes from government. So we know that government is growing faster, still one of the fastest growing sectors of employment,
right.
Believe it or not, with all the troubles that they have and with all the money which is being thrown out, just how much of the GDP, economic growth, and even job growth is due to the massive government spending, which is available because it becomes debt.
ADP breaks it down. This is interesting for January by industry. Here's the change by industry, starting with goods, natural resources and mining, plus 6,000 jobs. Construction, plus 22,000 jobs. Manufacturing, plus 2,000. In services, trade, transportation, and utilities, plus 23,000. Information, we've seen this in the headlines, down 9,000. A lot of tech jobs are going away. Financial activities, up 7,000. Professional and business services, up 2,000. Education and health services, up 17,000. Leisure and hospitality, up 28,000. That's the largest category. And other services, up 9,000. So that kind of gives you an idea of where, and again, these are private payrolls, U.S. private employment numbers from ADP, the payroll company. So it gives you an idea of, which sectors are, up and down. And we, again, with IT, we've seen a lot of those tech jobs that are going away and the layoffs that are happening there. That's likely to continue. I think probably with the advancement of AI, that could continue for quite some time. I mean, there's duplicity.
Just want to cut in with some breaking news here.
Go ahead.
Country music singer Toby Keith dead at age 62. Reported by NBC News. He had announced 18 months ago that he suffered from stomach cancer. Yeah. But surrounded by his family, he announced that he was living with cancer in June of 2022, and he spoke of the roller coaster experience of going through treatment while receiving the Country Icon Award at Thursday's People's Country Choice Awards.
You know, that was
last year.
He did some shows. There was a local news station in Oklahoma that just days ago did a sit-down interview with him. And he was in good spirits. He clearly looked like he had been through a lot. He had lost even more weight than what you had seen at that awards performance. But he was in good spirits. And he talked and mentioned, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, that he had kind of come to terms with, things that were going on in his life and his illness. You look at his rise in country music, and he just became a constant and made a lot of friends along the way. I mean, he was well respected. He had a little spat with the Dixie Chicks back and forth, and but that wasn't what defined him or them. I mean, that was their issue, was kind of separate. But when you look at his impact on music, there was a lot going on. Like when he got his new record deal, he changed labels at one point, and he said it gave him so much freedom to explore, everything that he wanted to write, the music he wanted to create, and everything else. And I just loved his voice. I loved his music. But that sit-down interview that they did with that TV station there in Oklahoma, it was clear that he was fighting, and it was taking a lot out of him physically. But again, he was in good spirits. They had mentioned that he had done some shows as recent as December, a few. And, that song that he performed, Don't Let the Old Man In, that was from the Clint Eastwood movie. Clint Eastwood gave him that advice. He asked him, what's the secret to growing old? Clint Eastwood said, don't let the old man in. Toby Keith went and wrote the song. Clint Eastwood put it in his movie, and a few years later, it finally hit the radio as a hit. Rest in peace, Toby Keith.
So sad. Dead at age 62. 866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Again, repeating the breaking news from a couple of moments ago. Country singer Toby Keith died last night, age 62, from stomach cancer. He's surrounded by his family. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, it's not that I'm hugely into country music, but you could not like Toby Keith.
I loved his attitude about performing. It's akin to what I see in a lot of artists that love what they do. Mm-hmm. And when he was performing at that awards show, Don't Let the Old Man In, that song, it was passionate, and it was like, man, he's going through so much, but he's still there performing that. And he had such a great passion for his fans for performing on stage. He will definitely be missed.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.